into this area here, into this stone wall. Okay, so what I've previously done, I've marked round the edge with a pen, just simply mark round it, and I've already pre-drilled the corner holes, and then with my grinder, my 4-inch angle grinder, battery operated with a stone cutting disc, I've just gone round the edge, just all round the edge there. That makes it nice and neat, and I've pre-done that simply because of the amount of dust that is created from that. I was going to film doing it, but the amount of dust in here was just, you wouldn't have been able to see anything. Okay, it's a stone wall. It's not a brick wall or a block or a plasterboard wall, a stud wall, and so this is a lime mortar. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to cut out as much of the lime mortar as possible, or position the box so the majority is just lime mortar. That's a lot easier to chop than the actual brick itself. Okay. Also, if you just look down the edge here, I've pre-drilled all this. Okay, because I've got all these wires. They need to come through here, and they're going to be coming through conduit to give a bit of extra protection for the cables. And so I pre-drilled all this so it's all out of the way, because that just took a long time to do. So the box needs to sit in there. So what I'm going to do, take my SDS drill, and I'm going to carry on a series of holes all around here and just chop out as much as possible, just break this up. Now there's only 2 bits of stone that I need to chop out, the rest is all just lime-based mortar. So hopefully that should chop out relatively easy. And at different times I'll keep checking to see if the box fits in nice and easy. I'll be using a combination of a club hammer and a bolster chisel, and also I might use the hammer action of my SDS drill, again with a chisel attachment. Okay. Right, now I've done that, hopefully I've drilled a series of holes all throughout the area that needs chopping out. Just by drilling all the holes internally, it just weakens the area that needs to be chopping out. This stone, combination of probably 4 to 6 inches deep, I only need to go in the depth of the box, which is approximately about 45 millimeters. And so just by chopping it all out, I've just weakened the area. I only need to go in approximately maximum of about 40-50 mil. And so now I'm going to turn the SDS drill, I'm going to get rid of the drill bit, I'm going to turn it onto just hammer action. This particular drill, like most SDS drills now, have a function where you can simply have it on just simply on drill, or hammer drill, or just hammer. So I'm just going to turn that onto there, and all that does now, it just vibrates backwards and forwards. I'm going to put the chisel bit in. Okay, and I want the chisel, I'm just going to now turn the drill, turn it back to drill, and I'm just going to turn it around until it's nice and hot, and the flat part of the chisel is horizontal with how I'm working. So I'm just going to turn it a couple of turns until it's roughly in line. I'm then going to turn it back to hammer action. Now what I'm going to do is just try and break out the majority of it. Sometimes we use these, sometimes we use the bolster and chisel. I'll probably use a combination of both. Right, as you can see, we've took out the majority or the bulk of the sort of the stone and the mortar. So now all I'm going to do is just offer the box in and just to see how well it fits. Now at the moment it's just catching, you can't quite see it, but it's just catching on this edge. So what I've not actually taken it far enough here, but that's okay because I can just go around gently with the bolster and chisel, with the chisel, and I can just make it fit. So that will go in there nice and tight. So I'll just put it down with the chisel, and I'll just go around the edge. One of the good things with working with the stone, not that I'm an expert with stone, but if ever you do get any bits that chip off, the stone can be redressed. And that's a combination with using a scratch chisel, and it's just chopping it away, and it's just rounding the edges off. We'll do that later on in the video, or later on in the job. But yeah, that's so if you do have sort of indentations going into the stone, that doesn't matter because that can be dressed and made to look natural. It's important also, say if this was a stud wall or a, not necessarily a stud wall, but say a plasterboard wall, more often than not you can make the hole a little bit bigger. You can make the hole a bit bigger and then it can easily just be filled with polyfiller and then skimmed over so the edges are all nice. Unfortunately we haven't got that option with when we're working with stone. Simply because you can't just put polyfiller in just to make the edges nice and neat. So we want to make it as tight, as fitting as possible, and then we'll mix up, if there are any gaps, lime mortar can be mixed up at the end of the job and just be filled in. But the finish that you see here will be the finish on the job forever, because this is a stone wall that's going to be left, this will be a feature wall, and so we need our box to fit in nice and neat. So it's important not to make the hole too big, because it just won't look nice if you see a great big thick line of sort of polyfiller or even lime mortar just stuck in the edge. Also a tip I've learnt along the way, when you hold a bolster chisel like this, this particular chisel is a good chisel, but some people hold the chisels close to the edge, especially if you've got this plastic handle, and they're there whacking away at it, and sometimes if they miss the edge here and they actually hit this rubber bit here because it's very hard, sometimes it can push the plastic along the shaft of the chisel. And the amount of times I've done it myself plenty of times, I've caught a little bit of skin here caught in this bit of chisel and in this little gap here, and it's pinched in really tight, and then you get a little blister forming and it's really painful. So just be careful when you are using the chisel to hold it properly. Okay, I'm going to offer up the metal box again. This time it's going in quite nice, it's going in at a bit of an angle. I'm just going to push it in again. And that's going okay. It's not going all the way in. I don't actually need it to go all the way in because the face plate will cover it, but it still needs to go back maybe another ½ an inch or so, or maybe sort of 10 or 12 mil. So again, this time I'm going to use this chisel here, It's just a cold chisel. I like using this because it's a bit more sort of precise and a bit neater. And again, sometimes when you use this chisel, again, another tip I've learned along the way is, so you see many builders holding the chisel. Right, so the builders have turned up now, so I might have to stop the video there, but so now, just to explain, I'm using the cold chisel now just to neaten up the edges. So I'm just going to go in at an angle. All I'm doing now is just dressing off the stone inside, trying to flatten it off. What I was saying earlier, was holding the chisel. Many people on site, builders, etc., hold chisels like this. When you're when you hit the chisel, if you miss and you suddenly hit your thumb, it's going to hurt. I was always taught to hold your thumb over the chisel like this. So if you do miss the chisel and you go down, you don't hit your thumb. So all I'm doing now, I'm just dressing the stone off. Just making it flat, making it neat. I'm also going it at an angle, just to take off any sharp edges or any bumps that might prevent the box going in flush. I'm just going to go back to the bolstered chisel. And again, I'm just flattening off everywhere so the job's nice and neat. And remember, I want this job to be as nice and as tight as possible. Just noticing in this corner I'm having a bit of problem here, just chopping it out so it's nice and flush. I'm just going to concentrate on this corner because I don't want that to be a problem. Okay, I'll go over one more time with the chisel. Let's see how well the box fits. So the box fits, no sideways movement. Tiny bit of upwards movement, but that's okay. Absolutely, probably a millimetre or so of sideways movement. Pushing that in now, and that job there is perfectly flush. Doesn't go back too far. It's nice and neat. It sits in there, nice and tidily, and that should be a good job. Right, so what I'm about to do now, we've chopped the box out. It's nice and tidy. I've chopped all this out before we started the job because that took quite a bit of time. So I've gone in approximately 4, 5, maybe 6 inches in there because a lot of the cables are going to go through here, and then they're going to come out, and then all I have to do is drill a series of holes coming through there, and actually just breaking, as you can see, the drill bit's gone in there, just breaking into there. And then what I'll do, I'll put some 20mm conduit through there just to sort of enhance the protection, because I don't really like just sticking cables in there and then just filling it all up with mortar. I want to give the cables a bit more protection. So obviously I'm going in at an angle. Initially you start on 90 degrees, nice and straight, and then turn it at a bit of an angle and just drilling. So I'm starting off with a 10mm drill bit, and now put the bigger drill bit, the 20mm drill bit, or 22mm I think it is. Now we've drilled out a slot there, so I should be able to get some bits of conduit through there, and all the cables then will be able to run in nice and neat. What I've done now, I've modified metal box slightly. There's going to be some people out there saying that I shouldn't have done this, but unfortunately I've had no choice with how to get the box mounted and how I'm going to get the wires through. So what I've done, I've used my 4-inch grinder or 4.5-inch grinder, and I've cut the bottom, the back out of the box. Okay, and then I have used my flat file, and I've just took off any burrs on the box. Therefore, any cables that's going to be rubbing against it isn't going to be getting damaged. Could argue that I should really put some protection round the edge. However, what I am doing instead of that is I'm putting conduit all the way through. I've got 5 pieces of conduit. I've already done this. It took me quite a bit of time to do it, so it would have took sort of a half an hour on to show you on the video. So I'm having conduit all the way through, so the conduit will be coming through at an angle, and so at no point is the outer PVC going to be in contact with the metal edge. So as you can see, there's some bits of conduit coming through here, and it's coming through here as well. Now I've got to get the box fitted in. I'm not going to fix it with a conventional screw and drywall fixing, not normal fixing. I'm going to use plasterboard adhesive in this case. This is why it's important to keep your ice cream tubs. I've just mixed up a small bit of plasterboard adhesive. The beauty of this is that it dries very quickly. It's very sticky, but it also dries very quick. So, if you're looking close here, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to spread it around the edges. I don't want an awful lot, and I don't want this coming through onto the actual stonework itself, because that wouldn't look very good or very professional. So I'm just sticking it around the edges. As you can hear now, there's other trades on site, and so sorry if the sound isn't all great. And so there's a bit of dust on the bottom here, so again it's very important to get rid of some of that dust. Now I've swept out some of it, but if I just stick plasterboard, if I just stick the adhesive onto that now, it won't stick. So now if you just peel some of that off, put it back in, mix it up again, put it back in, do that process a couple of times, that gets rid of a lot of the dust. Because some of the dust is lime mortar, it will just mix perfectly back in with the actual plasterboard adhesive. And so once I stick it back on now, I've got rid of some of that dust, and now it's stuck on there quite nice. And again, last but not least, what I'm going to do is then just spread a couple of bits on the back of the box itself. Hopefully this should go in nice and neatly. What I've done is I've got the bits of conduit protruding through, and I want those bits of conduit to come through approximately 5 or 6 mil into the back of the box. Don't want to come in too much, because then it will get in the way of the actual cables themselves, or the cables themselves. So I want them coming about 5 or 6 mil. And so I need to, it's a very fiddly job now, so it's going to take me a bit of time. So I need to get it mounted in, and then I need to make sure that the conduit sits underneath the actual top part of the box, which that seems to have gone in quite well actually. And so all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to push these back in so they're all flush. Believe it or not, this took quite a lot of time to set this up and to make this, get these all flush, working together. And that way, as you can just see, the conduits are coming in. There's the lip here where I've cut, but that's all been filed off. That's nice and smooth, that is. So none of the outer PVC is going to get damaged if it did come into contact with that. And now all I'm going to do is just infill some of this bit in here. And again, that's just it helps to get rid of the edge, and it just helps to keep the box secured in. I haven't used a single screw to fix this board. It's all done using plasterboard adhesive. You can use polyfiller, anything like that, but it's just a lot more expensive, and I think this is the best we can use, because the main reason being it goes off very quickly and the box is very secured. And within probably 10 minutes you can start pulling wires through, and it won't damage the box at all. So all I'm going to do is just wipe off any excess. Just get rid of that. And now I just want to make sure the box is nice and flush. And so you get a straight edge, like a piece of conduit, and you just run it over it, and there's no bit sticking out. There's a bit of a gap underneath here. That's where a mortar line was. So I will fill that back in with some lime mortar, and I will go around the edge with lime mortar as well. As you can see, it's an absolute minute edge, so it won't look bad. So that's quite a good fix in there. On this side, as you can see, I've got several cables now going to have to come through into the box. There's going to be a bit of oak frame built around this, so there's actually going to be a cavity behind all this. So all this will be boxed in using some oak, and so the oak will come approximately 6 to 8 inches, approximately to there. So all these cables then will come through here, and there's 5 bits of conduit, and they should come through nice and easily. So you can see the bits of conduit coming through here, and then all I have to do is then lime mortar this last 6 to 8 inches here, and that should be a good job. Just looking a bit more close up to the box again. You can see the 5 pieces of conduit coming through relatively neatly there. Again, I'll just go over, I'm going to have to lime mortar this bit. I'm going to infill these bits with lime mortar as well to make sure they're nice, and so it all looks nice and neat. Notice with this box, it's a double height box. I'm going to be mounting grid switches on this one, and there's no movement on these lugs, so it's important that we've got this relatively square, because there's not an awful lot of movement when you mount the grid switches. However, on the grid switch itself there is slight play, so if it isn't perfectly square, then there is a little bit of movement on the grid switch that I can play with there. You can see the bits of conduit come through there. It's mounted nice and strong, and jobs are good enough, I think.